Okay, so I've sent out the research prompt, the rubric, and the registration form all in the chat. So please make sure you have all of those open because I'll be discussing all of them today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started actually, just because I know that it's a weekday evening, so maybe some of you have plans and you have other things going on. So we'll try to make this as brief as possible, and then I'll also stick around at the end if you have any extra questions. But I'm going to be talking about all the things that you need to know if you want to participate in our research symposium this year. I want to briefly remind everyone that it is not required for your certificates. You don't have to do it. It's just if you want to, you know, get some experience with doing research from the comfort of your own home, do it with friends or other participants from the program and, compete for some awards. That is what we encourage, and we think it's a good way to for you to get some experience before you actually, do real research in your own high school or university. But again, just in case any of you are here because you think it's required for the certificate, it is not. So I've shared this document in the chat. Hopefully you have it open, but this is our research symposium prompt for this year. Everyone has a couple of weeks to work on this. I think it's about 2.5 weeks. All of your submissions are due by Friday, August 15th, and you submit your projects by emailing us. Some successful submission media that we've seen in previous years are a presentation or slideshow. However, I will say that if you are planning on doing the research symposium and you submit a slideshow, you should not just be submitting a slideshow. It should be a video with you talking about your slideshow because we grade you on how thorough your submissions are, and you can't really get super thorough if you're just submitting to us a PowerPoint. If you submit a video of you talking about your PowerPoint and you're explaining in depth what your project is about, that's better. So you can do a presentation and a pre-recorded video. We have students submitting like just documents, so essentially a research paper about their solution. That is also heavily encouraged. Some groups in the past have also submitted things like fake magazines or, visual brochures and graphics. Those are also welcome and recommended. You don't have to follow the list of things that we have here. You can create your own media, your own whatever. And if you have any questions or concerns about what is the best way to submit a project, you can reach out to us on Slack because we'll answer those questions for you. But you don't have to stick to the list here. Just make sure you contact us and let us know what you're planning on doing ahead of time, so that way we can approve it and let you know if we think it'll be good. And that way you don't, spend too much time working on it when it might not actually work. So if you're submitting a document or something rather than the PowerPoint, you don't need to do a video, but we do give out speaking awards, so it's recommended that you submit a video as well. You don't have to. So our prompt for this year is related to global health challenges. So we've listed a few here, but there are a ton that you can pick from. This is not a comprehensive list. So we've mentioned some things like climate change, antibiotic resistance, and we've talked a little bit about how those affect human health, how they contribute to things like increased risk of heart attack, lung cancer, stroke, etc. We have cardiovascular diseases, neurological disease, just a whole host of things that threaten human health. So you can pick one of those, you can pick anything else too, that's fine as long as it's just something that threatens human health. And so what you're responsible for doing is picking one of these challenges and developing a solution. I want to very clearly state that it's a hypothetical solution. So we don't expect you to be going out into your communities and trying to, work in a lab to fix this problem, because you probably won't be able to do that in the 3 weeks that you have to work on this project. But you should propose some sort of hypothetical solution that is backed in previous scientific research. It should be backed in evidence, and it should be something that seems reasonable to implement. So you're going to pick one of these and you're going to design a solution to it. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some examples here. So you could design an innovative method for early cancer detection. You could design a medical device to treat different conditions. I think we've had some participants in previous years develop sample devices that would detect certain neurodegenerative diseases before they develop. You could develop something that would help fight antibacterial resistance. You could do something that's focused on health, so something on promoting healthier lifestyles in your communities. It doesn't have to be all hard, basic science. It could also just be something like we noticed that in this community, people aren't very active. And so what we want to do is use an evidence-based program to encourage people to get out of their homes, go on walks, do like group dance classes or whatever. So that way their communities can be healthier if they are low income communities, if they don't have access to medical education, maybe teaching them about how to take care of their bodies if they don't have access to that. That is also a great thing that you can work on. It doesn't have to be all about cancer, AI, all of these different things. It can be very creative and very much up to you. So we encourage you to work on this with at least one other person. You can totally work on it by yourself. I personally would not recommend working on this with more than 4 to 5 people. In the past, our previous submissions that have been successful, that have gone on to win awards, they've only had about 4 to 6 people max. What we end up seeing with our groups of 10 people, even though you're allowed to have 10 people, is people fall off, the work doesn't get distributed very evenly, and the project doesn't end up being submitted because it's a lot to manage a team of 10 people. So I would personally recommend only doing maybe 4 or 5 people max, but you are allowed to work with up to 10 people. That's fine. We won't stop you. So that's it for how many people you can work on the project with. So there are a couple of requirements that we have here, and there are more requirements that we talk about in the rubric that I'll be discussing shortly. So your solution can't be entirely hypothetical. It has to be based on previous research. It can't be just a thought you had in your head that has no backing in any type of research. You have to describe, you have to tell us explicitly how your solution is unique. I think in some previous years, participants had some really awesome solutions, but they would fail to tell us explicitly why their solution was unique, hadn't been done yet, what was special about your solution. So you have to really hype it up, kind of like being a salesperson. So make sure you do that. If your approach has been done before and you're suggesting a modification to a previous treatment technique, whatever, then tell us how your implementation, how your modification is going to make this so much better. So again, please do not just present research on a topic that's already developed. I actually can't tell you how many times participants have submitted projects to us on things that already existed and they didn't add anything new to it. So there has to be some element of something new here in your project. You can't just be presenting research on a topic that's already developed. It can't be a solution that already exists because that's not innovative, that's not creative. So there has to be some element of something new. And then you should talk about how you're going to actually implement it. Obviously, we don't expect you to do this, but in a hypothetical world, how would you actually test it and make sure your solution is effective? How would you get approval? How much would it cost if you're in the US and you have to implement some sort of drug treatment for cancer? How much would that cost? How do you plan on getting approval by the FDA? What class device would a medical device be, etc.? So you should do research on those types of things to consider the legal financial costs of things. And then you want to talk about how you're going to collect data. And you should also talk about how you're going to make sure you're remaining ethical throughout this. So how are you making sure that you are not biased towards participants, making sure that you analyze data, maybe you subject participants to like a placebo trial or something. Talk about how you're making it ethical, talk about how you're making sure you control for your data. So yeah, that's all detailed here. I won't read through every bullet because you can read through this on your own. You should address the pros and cons of your solution. So I'm sure there'll be lots of pros, but don't just talk about only the pros. Every solution has some drawback to it, so talk about those drawbacks as well. Limitations, social and ethical challenges, etc. So that's everything there. I want to now show you our rubric. So our rubric here is pretty straightforward. You can earn a maximum of 75 points. They are split up into, I think, 5 different categories. Yeah, they're 5 different categories. So our first category is development and the strategic aspect. So you need to make sure it's a solution that effectively addresses a real world problem and it's very detailed and it's a thought out description of the issue. So you need to tell us what the issue is. You need to make sure you describe it properly. Assume that we don't have that much knowledge about the issue. So tell us what the issue is and then tell us how your solution is going to address that issue and make sure you've considered everything. This is typically the category, this is one of two categories where participants lose the most points. It's because you're not thorough enough. And you can, again, get feedback from us up until the deadline. So we can tell you if we think you're being thorough enough or not. You should not be submitting projects to us for feedback 1 or 2 days before the deadline. That's not enough time. We already have 50 people registered for our research symposium, or 50 groups, so we don't have time to be doing that 1 or 2 days out. You should be submitting things to us at least a week and a half in advance if you want some good feedback. Then we have creativity and visuals. There should be some pictures, there should be some diagrams, there should be potentially some aspect of color. It should not just be all black and white, just a big wall of text. We have participants sometimes submitting slideshows to us that are just giant chunks of text. That that's not going to earn you many points on creativity and visuals. You need to make sure it's pretty to look at. Something that I like to do when I'm creating presentations is I take myself out of the presentation and I go, if I was a student looking at this presentation, would I like it? Would I think it was aesthetic? Would I want to pay attention because it seemed interesting? So if you're doing a presentation or you have submissions, show it to your family members, show it to your friends. If you have teachers, show it to if you're in school right now, I'm assuming most of you are not, show it to your teachers or teaching assistants. See if they have any feedback for you, if they think there are things you should change. That's totally fine. You can get feedback from whoever you'd like, as long as no one else is doing the project for you. Totally fine. And then research method. This is also another section where participants lose the most points. Make sure that it is thorough. So like I mentioned in the development part, your actual research method, your actual your research is effective. You've read clearly some good papers, scientific papers that have given you some good background into what your problem is, and your solution seems very realistic based on that. You need to make sure it's thorough, and that it is backed up. Then there's a real world application. Sometimes what students will do is they'll submit a project that's awesome, but they haven't considered how much it would cost. They talk about implementing the solution in low-income countries, but then they don't talk about how much it would cost to actually sustain that solution in the low-income countries. If people can't pay for it, how are you going to pay for it long term? That's something you have to consider. So make sure you're considering as many aspects as possible, from the initiation of the project to its execution to keeping it running for a very long time, if it's something that needs to be run for a long time. Not all of your solutions will need to be run over a long period of time. And then this last section is the easiest section for you to get all 10 points on. It's referencing, grammar, and spelling. We do sometimes get submissions where people have not cited anything. What we mean by citations is anytime you write something down that is a thought or a fact that does not come directly from your head, so it's something that you've read in a paper, it's something that you've read online in a textbook, whatever, there needs to be an in-text citation for that. And I'll be sharing some sample submissions with you of participants that have done that successfully. Yeah, Aon?
For the references, do we have to do it in a specific format?
Good question. We're not very picky about the format. You can do MLA, APA, Vancouver style, whatever works best for you. We're not very picky about it. Just make sure it's consistent across the entire presentation. And all of the referencing styles that I just mentioned, they all have in-text citations of some sort. So that's all that matters to us. Make sure you're submitting stuff and citing stuff in your text, as well as an end list of references too. That is so important. If you don't provide us with any in-text citations, you'll unfortunately get 0 points out of 10 for that section, because that's plagiarism. So we take it very seriously. And the reason we take it seriously is because your schools and your universities are going to take it extremely seriously. If you fail to provide an in-text citation in university, you may fail the assignment and potentially fail the course. So we want to teach you guys that this is important to do now, which is why we're so hard about it. But we want you to succeed, so that's why we're telling you now, make sure you're citing and citing properly. And yeah, just making sure that you have good grammar, spelling and composition. Your project has a flow. You're not starting with the limitations and then going into the project. Start with, make sure that your flow makes sense. Should be problem, what the solution is, how the solution will be implemented, then limitations, concerns, finances, blah, 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 sustaining the project over a long period of time. So you're going to get a score out of 75. Now, how does this translate to awards, you might ask? So going back to our different awards categories, we have about, I think, 6 or 7 different categories already. So you have research excellence. There's first, second, and third place for all of these different categories. So there's research excellence, the most innovative solution, the most creative solution media, excellence in mental health and psychiatry, excellence in environmental studies. And if we end up getting a lot of submissions from another category that isn't mentioned here, like, I don't know, marine science or whatever, we'll add that category as well. Visual excellence, and then overall awards. So for all of these awards that are listed here, there's first, second, and third place. Getting an award when you submit a project is not guaranteed. It is dependent on the score that you end up getting on your rubric. So let's say we're looking at the Excellence in Mental Health and Psychiatry Award. We look at all of the projects that had a solution about mental health and psychiatry, and we sort it by the top 3 scores. So let's say someone gets a 75 out of 75, first place. Someone gets a 70 out of 75, second place. Someone else gets a 65 out of 75, that's third place. So that's how we determine the awards, and we have multiple people grading every submission, and we take an average of those scores. So it's not just one person grading your submission and being responsible for whether or not you get an award. Even if you don't get an award, you will still all get a participation certificate for doing the research symposium. So you'll have something to show for this. And the last thing I want to say is if you plan on participating this year, you should have registered by Saturday, August 2nd. So that's coming up. Our homework form for the program is due Friday, and this registration form is due Saturday. Hopefully you've already have filled it out. We do this because we want to get a head count of how many people are planning on participating. And if you want to work with people that are not summer program members, you have to email us at info@medicinepower.org and include your external participants' full names, and school email addresses so that we can approve them for you. And yeah, all submissions will be allowed to record a video if you want to be considered for other speaking awards, but we'll tell you more about that later. Okay, so I've shared everything that you need in the chat. So I'll stop sharing my screen now and I'll see if people have any questions. If you have questions you want to ask me now, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you, or you can put questions in the chat too. That's also fine. So I see Hannah or Hannah.
Hi. So first, I wanted to ask, like, could we like submit a portfolio, or does it have to be like a presentation, like a PowerPoint presentation?
What do you mean by a portfolio?
So a portfolio is basically like everything about a project in like paper. It could be up to like maybe 90 pages. It's like kind of has every single small detail about the project.
I would not recommend submitting something that is 90 pages. I would say if you're submitting a document, it should probably be 10 to 15 pages max, single
Yeah.
spaced. So
Yeah.
maybe a shortened portfolio would be better, but not just a PowerPoint.
Okay. And about the index citations. So I'm kind of a freshman, like I'm preparing for a freshman year of high school. I have no idea what index citations even is. So could
Mhm.
you like briefly explain?
Absolutely. Let me actually see if I can find an example right now as well to share with you. And for those of you asking in the chat for us to show you sample submissions from previous years, I will also be showing that in a second as well. So just hang tight. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to copy this image over into the document and then I'll show you. Okay, so if you look here, this is just a sample paragraph taken from a fake paper. And so what's highlighted in yellow here is an in-text citation. So what they've done in the paper is they've taken a quote from this book, whatever. So it's not their own words, it's something that someone else has written. And so they quoted that. And then after the quote, they've written the author's name. You can write the title of the paper or the book, the year, etc. And then you just include that there within your document, within your presentation. So it should be there right after you've said something that's not your own, and then it should also be listed at the end. I can also upload a couple of guides on in-text citations um, in my message that I post after this session as well.
Okay, thank you. And by methods, again, this is my first time doing like a research, so I have no idea what you mean by like methodology. So what should be included in that part?
Yeah, so the methods are just how you plan on setting up your study to achieve your results. So let's say you want to implement a health program in a community to get people to be more active. So your methods are, okay, we're going to go into communities every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. This is how often we're going to do the treatment. This is how long the treatment is going to last for. And this is how we're going to measure if it's successful. So it's kind of the steps that show you how you actually did your research.
Okay, and my plan for the research is to like research about endometriosis. Now that's women's health. Is there like a category for that or not?
Right now, no, but
Mm,
you would still be considered for all the other words. And if we end up getting a lot of submissions in women's health, we'll create a separate category for that.
okay, now can I like submit more than one project or like
Yes,
more?
we don't recommend it, but you can.
Okay, and the deadline is August 15th, right?
Yes, the deadline's August 15th.
Thank you.
Yep, no worries. Loretta?
Hi, yeah. So I have a question in regards to the research symposium.
Mhm.
I'm applying to medical school next year, and I was wondering if this is more like a presentation or if we have a chance to get published.
Yeah, so this is more of a presentation chance to get like research awards affiliated with our nonprofit more than it is to get published.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no worries. Yasmin?
Hello.
Hi.
Firstly, I want to thank you for this amazing program and your great effort. So my question is, are we allowed to get a recommendation letter?
You can. That's not related to the research symposium though.
Okay, my second one, what is the maximum number of people allowed in the team for the research?
10, but we recommend 4 to 6.
Okay, thank you.
No worries. Ashley?
Hi, so I think I just heard you answer another person and said that we're allowed to submit more than one research paper or project. Is that correct?
Yes.
I asked a question like early in the chat about if we're able to be in two separate groups. So does that mean like if we were to submit multiple research papers, it would have to be only from one group instead of two separate groups?
No, you can work with different groups and submit things. That's fine.
Oh, okay. Wait, so just to be clear, like we can be a part of two different groups and submit two different papers.
Yes, and
Okay.
they'll be equally considered for everything.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to take a little pause now and see if there are questions in the chat. I think a lot of people have answered questions in the chat. Everything will be sent to you on Slack. Yes, you can work alone. How do you make documents creative or colorful? I'm actually going to show you an example of a really fantastic submission from last year, or either last year or 2 years ago, where they submitted a document, but they had figures and pictures and diagrams, and that's how you make it colorful. We'll send out more information about references. If you're a group of 8, would you recommend that you split into 2 groups, or is it possible for a group of 8 to place? If you all work together and you are able to meet all of the deadlines, make sure that you're submitting things on time, getting your project in, I'm sure that a group of 8 could be very successful. I haven't seen it yet, But I mean, if you want to stay in that group of 8, then you're more than welcome to. I would really say it's more up to you. You do not have to do the video to present. We're not doing a live symposium this year, so everything's pre-recorded. And yes, I will be sharing winning research throughout the previous years. Yes, it's okay to work on yourself, work on the project by yourself. If you paraphrase or explain an article instead of taking a direct quote, you still have to use in-text citations. If you're paraphrasing something from a textbook, from a paper, writing it in different words, that's what paraphrasing means, you still absolutely have to do in-text citations because it still is a thought or a fact that didn't come directly from your own head. Again, you can talk about any different topics. There are a list of potential ones you can talk about on the document. So you can either do a research paper or you could do a PowerPoint and a video. You don't have to do both. What are the basics of research you're supposed to follow? So I would recommend starting on a website called Google Scholar and then typing in some words related to your project. So if you want to do a neurology project, typing in some words about that and reading some scientific papers about how people solved those specific issues in an actual science setting to familiarize yourself with those methods. So I would recommend starting out on Google Scholar first and then seeing what else there is. Okay, so do I have any other hands up? Hannah, is your hand up again?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask about the video. Does it have to show my face or can it just be audio?
We would recommend that your faces be shown in the video. They don't have to be, but I would recommend it.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yep, no worries. Okay, Tamina?
Hey Davina, I can also DM specifics on the ideas I'm thinking about, but I was just wondering since for this research symposium we're focusing on global health issues, I guess like what are the boundaries or expectations of that in that like what if we're interested in like addressing rates of tuberculosis or maternal health outcomes, but we're interested in addressing it in specific countries or regions as opposed to like the entire globe, or like we say like this is focused on this particular region or country, but it can be extended to like address global health.
That's totally fine. You can specify. There aren't any, I don't think there are very many hard boundaries here. So if you want to focus on a specific problem like tuberculosis in a specific community that affects specific people, that is 100% fine. It's really just pick a problem that affects humans in some way and affects their health and then develop a solution. So not many things we would not approve of. Okay. And now I will share with all of you the submissions from last year, some really good ones that we had that ended up earning awards. So our prompt was very similar last year. Actually, I think it was pretty much the same thing. So I'm going to share with you one sample submission, and all of these are going to be shared with you on Slack afterwards. I'm even going to include the links to our last 3 recorded symposiums. So it's about like 10 hours of student projects. You can see what all of the other students submitted and how they presented, because we used to do a live symposium where everyone would present on one day in one Zoom call. So I'll share those videos as well. So there are tons of resources and lots of previous projects you can look at to see what people did to be successful. Okay, let's see if I can share it. So this was a submission from last year, I believe, from a fantastic participant who addressed a very specific type of antibiotic resistance. So this is structured like a scientific research paper. So they have an abstract here that talked about, what the objective was, where they got the data from, the big conclusions they made, and the implications. So there's an introduction here that tells you about the issue. Then it tells you about antibiotic resistance, what it means for human health. Then they talk about different ramifications of these solutions, etc. And this will be shared with you, so that's why I'm scrolling through it a little bit quickly. They have some diagrams here that show you about more about the specific strain of bacteria they're talking about here, which is MRSA. They talk about how this actually creates a problem in the human body. And then they talk about their actual solution. So there are lots of diagrams here, lots detailing different therapeutics, and then the actual solution here. So they've done a lot of background, a lot of research into their background. You can also see a different type of in-text citations here. Then they talk about their treatment here. So they're talking about the complement cascade, how this treatment is going to utilize human antibodies and why that's going to work. They talk about testing and trials, toxicology, dose range finding, all of these different things like body system activity, target system binding. Then there's logistics and limitations, financing, there's conclusions, and then a whole list of references. So this ended up scoring very well. I think this placed first in our research category and also won an overall award. It was very well done. And this is an example of what we're looking for. If you are a new student to research and you're like, this seems very intense for me, I don't know if I could do something on this level, that is totally okay. We are not expecting everyone to perform at this specific level that I'm showing here in this project. We get submissions all the time that score super well from students in grade 9 that don't have previous research experience. That's why we're here to help you, so we can help you find scientific resources, help explain difficult topics to you, and just be there to support you, especially if this is something that is new to you. Okay, so that's one example. And that's what we would be looking for if you're submitting a scientific paper or a research paper. And then I will also show you another presentation. Give me 1 second. Have any solo participants ever won an award? Yes, solo participants actually win awards lots of the time. Most of our top award winners, I think, are either solo participants or groups of like 1 to 4. Okay, so I'm going to show you 2 things for this next submission. So this group, they also submitted a scientific paper meaning a research paper. So they have an abstract and they're targeting emphysema or COPD, talking about their proposal, why their solution is great, blah, 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 blah. They're detailing the solution, advantages, disadvantages. Again, this is going to be shared with you after the workshop. Social introduction, challenges, a beautiful list of references. So they submitted that, and they also submitted this slideshow because they did a video because they wanted to be eligible for speaking awards. So they also submitted this, which I will show you now. So this was one group that submitted this. It's the same thing. They talk about the issue and they were speaking over this while they showed us the slides. Talk again more about the issue, who is affected by this issue. So why is it important that we address it? Talk about who it affects, how it's caused, and then how your solution is going to address that cause. So this is their solution, and this is how their solution is going to work based on this background information that they've provided to you. They talk about how they're going to administer it. Notice how none of these slides are just giant blocks of text. They take advantage of things like little blocks of text that have arrows so you can follow their flow of thought, big diagrams, lots of different colors. Most of it's red and blue. So this was another great presentation, and then references. So they were speaking over this as well. This is why we don't recommend just submitting a PowerPoint, because this is not as in-depth as submitting this in and something to supplement it. Okay, those and some other submissions are going to be shared with you after the meeting, but I'm going to stop now and see if I have any questions. You submit your final projects to info@medstempower.org by Friday at 11:59 p.m. And just make sure you've attached everything you need to attach, your PowerPoint, your video, your document, whatever. Make sure you've submitted it. There's no word limit. Don't make it insanely long, because then it won't be as interesting to read, because it'll just be a ton of text. Try to be concise. And yes, you can do the research in any track as long as it follows the prompt. And yes, you submit it via email. While submitting your idea, do all the group individuals need to show or talk, or is it okay to divide it? Yeah, you can divide it up, that's fine. And yes, I love using BioRender. So I'll send this out in the chat, but I would definitely recommend looking into BioRender, especially if you're doing a basic science project where you're going to need to talk about things like, cells, different types of biochemical tests and whatnot. BioRender allows you to create some really nice scientific graphs, diagrams, cell receptor interfaces and whatnot. So I'd recommend using BioRender. Any other good visual sources, you can try Canva, but other than that, I'm not too sure what exists out there, but I would recommend those two to start. And if you've submitted a PowerPoint, you have to share a video. I would not just submit a PowerPoint. A PowerPoint by itself is very unlikely to do well without something else to supplement it. Okay, so I'm going to share all of these resources in our announcements channel and in our research symposium channel as well. So you can take a look at that.